One of the easiest ways to book more calls in your coaching, consulting, or agency-based offer is to get leads to actually inbound to us. Instead of us having to outreach to leads all the time, we can get them to inbound to us into a DM conversation. We can capture their email, add them into our email list, and then ultimately sell to them over email, plus continue that DM conversation through to the point of setting a call. Now, a lot of businesses will use ManyChat to do this. The problem with ManyChat is it gets expensive. They charge you more per contact that you have, and it's more difficult to set up because you then have to connect it to third-party softwares through Zapier to automate emails. Instead, inside GoHighLevel, you can do all of this in a simple workflow, and all of the contacts will automatically save into your email list. Now, the first step inside GoHighLevel is to go to settings and then down to integrations, and we want to connect our Facebook and Instagram account. So under Facebook and Instagram, we can click connect. This will have a pop-up on the screen that will walk us through the steps that we need to click in order to connect our Facebook account. Now, when we do this, we want to, prior to connecting it, go into Facebook. We log into our Facebook profile. When we're logged into our Facebook profile, on the left-hand side, there'll be a flag icon that we can click that will take us to pages. Once we're in pages, we can create a page for our business. Once we have that page for our business, we can click settings on the bottom left and then choose linked accounts, and we can then add our Instagram account to our Facebook page, and we can toggle on the button that allows for Instagram conversations and DMs to flow through. That means that when we connect our Facebook page here, we then have the option to then pull through our Instagram account too. So then that way we have connected our Facebook page and our Instagram page all in one. That then means that if we head back into automation, the steps that I'm going to walk you through become very simple. We can create a workflow from scratch. And when we create that workflow from scratch, we can then add our triggers. Now, our triggers, we can set two. We can set replied, which is when a customer replies. We can choose a filter, and we can then choose the channel, and we can then select one of the chosen channels, be that Facebook Messenger, be that Instagram DM. Let's go with Instagram in this example, Instagram DM. We can add another filter, and we can choose either if their phrase contains this or if it exactly matches this. I would suggest always doing exactly match, because as an example, let's say we triggered this sequence when someone DMs us the word calories. If we said contains the phrase, that would mean that if I sent you a DM saying, hey George, I want to know how many calories I should eat, that would trigger this, which we don't want. We want it when there's a specific call to action. So we can then set the specific keyword. This isn't case sensitive, so it's fine if you have capitals or not capitals, that's fine. But it is specific. So if the word's keyword, you can add a couple variations of this to make sure that it always triggers. Once we've done that, we can click save, and that's our DM trigger setup. Now, the next trigger that we want to add is when people comment. So we can then choose comment here, and you'll see that the comments, they're blacked out at the minute because I haven't connected my Facebook and Instagram account. When you connect your Facebook and Instagram account, these will then show up and you can click on them. You can add your filters just like you would do when ultimately setting up the DM trigger. Once you've done that, you would save it and then save up here. You'll notice if you just then give the page a refresh, we can then add a branch in the automation to then split off, so we can do different things based off what the trigger is. So if we had added that comment, we'd have two triggers here. One when people DM, the other when people comment. We can then add an if branch here, and we can choose DM. We can then select trigger, and we can choose is, and we can then select the customer replied one. If we had added the comment, we could then add another branch here, and we could choose comment. We could then say workflow trigger, and we could choose is, and then we could select that as the other trigger. Once we've done that, we would then save. We then would have three branches on here, one for DM, one for comment, and then one for none. In the DM one, we would then ultimately do the steps I'm about to show you. In the comment one, imagine there's a comment one here. In the comment one, we would add an action called reply, and here replying comments. What that then does when you click that is you can add multiple variations of what you want the reply to be. And you can then have it where when they comment, it replies to their comment, and it will choose one of the variations of comments that you add. So then their replies aren't always going to be the same. It's going to switch through them, ultimately meaning that it doesn't seem robotic and automated. It seems manual because it's a different reply each one. At the end of that, we can then ultimately build out the sequence now. So we can then add a tag, and we can tag that contact based off what they've opted in. So we could then say IG, and we could then say whatever the guide is. So calorie guide, for example, if that's the type of guide. What we can then do is in the branch for the comment, so in that comment branch, we would add a step called go to, and we would then choose to go to here. So then if you imagine we've got 3 branches, a DM, a comment, and none. In the comment one, we have it replying to the comment, then a go to this tag in the DM branch, because then it means that we can reply to their comment. Obviously when they DM us, there's no comment to reply to. We can then here, if we want to, we can then update their opportunity. So we can choose one of the pipelines if we have a pipeline built out, and a stage. We can add their name, so we can choose contact full name, and then we can add an opportunity source. So this opportunity source, in this case, we could type in the name of the Instagram account, and then we could put DM sequence. So we know from a sort of a source perspective and attribution perspective, they've come through a DM sequence. They're an open lead, and then we can allow them to move through the pipeline so that we can then save that. Once you've obviously selected your pipeline stages, you'll then be able to save that. What we then want to do is, in the chat sequence, we want to reply to their messages. So here, because we're doing Instagram, we'd choose Instagram DM. If we are doing Facebook, we'd choose Facebook Messenger. If we were doing SMS, we'd choose SMS. If we were doing WhatsApp, we'd choose WhatsApp. In this case, we're doing Instagram, so we'd select Instagram. We can then add our message. So we could then say, thanks for requesting my calorie guide. What's the best email to send it over to? Just one point to note here is you can add custom fields where we include their first name, but just one point to realize on social media, not everyone's going to have their first name available. So someone's account might be called I Go to the Gym, for example, and their name might be George. Obviously that's then not going to show up as their first name, and it then will just get a bit messy. So I suggest leaving out the name part here. What we can then do is we can add a wait step. In this wait step, we can then select one of these variations. So you can see wait for a period of time, wait until a specific date, wait until recurring window, until schedule, until contact replies, until takes an action, or until specific conditions are met. We want to choose contact replied, and we want to then choose until they've replied to Instagram DM. What we can then do is we can add a timeout window of 1 hour. So then what happens here is they get sent the Instagram DM, the system waits until they reply or for 1 hour. So if they haven't replied within 1 hour, it comes down here, and we can then add a branch called no reply. In this no reply branch, we can then say, has the contact replied? And we can say false, they have not replied. We can then add an Instagram icon. Again, the same here, you would choose Instagram for Instagram, Facebook for Facebook, etc., etc. And in here, we could just say, just bumping this up. So then it's a follow-up message. When they do reply, we can add an Instagram message, and we can then say, here's the link. And then we can add the link to the resource in the message. Plus, because we've got their email and Instagram will auto save their email, we can then add a step for email, and we can link it up to the account sending name by choosing account name, the account email by choosing account email, and then we can add the subject line, the preview header, and then the actual body of the email. And again, we can address their first name, but just keep in mind that if they're coming from social media, we probably don't have their first name available there. Cool. And we can then again link the resource again. We can save it. What we can then do is here in this follow-up, we can ultimately wait until they have replied to this Instagram DM here. Let's just name these so it's a little bit easier. So this is the follow-up one. This is giving the resource. Then this one is just Instagram one, initial. Cool. And in this wait step, we can then wait until the follow-up one, until they have replied, and then we'll send them this message when they do reply. But before we send them this message, we want to add an if statement, and we want to check if their reply, so we can say contact reply, if their replied message contains an @ symbol, because then we know that they've shared their email. If they have shared their email, it then sends them the resource. If they haven't shared their email, we can then add another message and just say, oh, that email doesn't seem valid. Just checking it's right. But because someone might send their wrong email multiple times, we can at the top of this add a splitter. And on this splitter, we can then choose 5 variations and we can go 20% on each one. And then we can ultimately duplicate this wording of the message and we can change it. That didn't seem to send. Is there another email? And as soon as that lead sends their email, Facebook, Instagram, it will auto save it to your GoHighLevel account, and then that will be in your email list. So we can copy this all across. We can obviously change the variation on each one so it's slightly different. So then the system will randomly choose one of these variations. Down here, we can then choose to wait until the contact replies again. So we can then choose to wait until they reply. What we just want to do before that though is we just want to email check 1. Then we can do here, email check 2. Here, email check 3. Just so we then know what we're waiting for. Here. Then we can choose wait. We can choose contact replied. And then this is email check 1. We can copy this across. And this is email check 2. Copy this across, and then number 3. Cool, and then number 4. And then lastly, number 5. Cool. And then what we can do is we can choose for it to go to. So once they then reply to this, it will then loop back around up to here. Oh. So we do a go to step. And then it will loop back around up to there to then check again if they have their email. And if their email is valid, what it will then mean is it will go through and give them the resource. If it's not valid, it will then come back through and send one of these randomized 5 variations. So then all we need to go through is just add the final go-to steps along the bottom. And once we've done that, it will then loop back around. And we just want to then essentially make sure in this that we ask for their email. So then what happens is the following flow. We've got a DM when people DM us a keyword on a certain channel, and then we've got a comment as well. We would then have 3 branches along here, one for DM, which is linked to this trigger, the other for comment that's linked to this trigger, and then just none. In the comment branch, we would have the action, which is reply to their comment and then go to this tag. In the none branch, we just have nothing. In the DM, it would be laid out like this, where we tag them, and we can have the step to add them or create them as an opportunity, like we mentioned. We then send them a DM asking which email is best to send the guide over to them. The system then waits until they reply, or for an hour if they haven't replied. If they haven't replied, it then checks to make sure that they haven't replied and sends a follow-up. In this follow-up, it then says, just bumping this up, what's the best email to send it over to? Once they essentially get sent that message, the system waits until they reply. When they reply, we can now add a go-to step to then go to here to check if their reply contains an email. If they did reply here, it will just come down here to check if their reply contains an email. If it does, it will then send them the resource on a message and then also send them an email with a link to. Important that you send them an email as well, because then it makes sense why you're asking for that email. If they then don't send their email, it will choose one of these 5 random variations, and it will then have a variation of the different wording asking if there's a better email. The system then waits until that lead replies to this message before it loops back around to check if they have sent their email, and if they have, it then sends them the resource and the email. You will then be able to save this, run this, and you can just duplicate this workflow for all of your different scenarios. And then you can literally create multiple different chat sequences for all your different lead magnets. Plus, you can add multiple different words, so then it triggers for different variations, which means that you can find exactly what resonates best with your leads and use that as a call to action, but test it with multiple different options at first across different posts, and then see what lands best and gets the best uptake. What you'll then find is all of these contacts that share their email in GoHighLevel, their email and phone number is ultimately always stored straight away if they mention it on a social media conversation in DMs on Facebook and Instagram if it's connected to your platform. If it is, that will automatically be stored into your contacts and saved, ready for you to do outreach to on your email list. So if you have this sequence, this then means that you can put up posts and have the call to action to get people to comment or DM keywords, even on posts, on stories. And when they do, it's automated. You then pick up the conversation after this, and then it means that you can then set them in the DMs plus then sell them over email. And you can go one step further here. And when you share the link, you could then ask a question about the resource, and you can ask that question so then they reply and the conversation leads on even more. And you're then in a position where you can then ultimately take that DM through to the point of booking in a call for you to then close that prospect. And if you follow those steps, you can replace ManyChat for a fraction of the cost.